how to crack the global market, first-hand lessons on building a global company. We're going to have a quick one-on-one chat, me and Sachin, for about 5-7 minutes, and we're going to invite the panelists up. So big round of applause, big cheer for Sachin Duggal, Chief Wizard at Builder.ai. Sachin, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Right. When was the moment, that bubble, if we were in comic books, where it became apparent to you that, yeah, I want to create this company? When was that eureka moment? Tell me the second when it happened.
The second is always difficult. I don't think you create companies at a particular moment.
Yeah.
I think it's like a wine. It keeps sort of going through the fermentation process. And for me, it started with when we were trying to get an app built and got really rogered, sitting in the mecca of the tech world in San Francisco. I went to Imperial College of Computer Science with electrical engineering. I consider myself a good developer or an engineer. And if I struggled to get it done, there's no hope in hell for the little bakery down the road. And I think the second was I have 2 little dinosaurs, and I don't want them growing up in the world where they have to be the boy or the girl that can code.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. And you've done so much, and you've created this global company. A is local, Z is global. How do we get from A to Z?
You know, it's a journey, Mark. And the journey has many mistakes.
Yeah.
To me, it's I always remember that Batman quote, which is, you know, when he sort of turned to his son and said he'd fallen down the well, say, well, why'd you fall down? Just to learn how to get up.
Yeah.
And so to the extent you don't fall down, you never learn how to get up. And for us, it's been, you know, we started in India, then we went all the way across to the West Coast, then we came to the UK, then we came to the Middle East. And through each of those, and we went to Asia, sort of Singapore. And so each of these iterations, we've really learned what doesn't work and what does. And I think that A to Z is, number one, your customer is always local.
Yeah.
And I'd say that the second thing we learned is the only person that matters is the customer. After the customer is the team, and then it's everyone else. And so you build for the customer. And I think, you know, ultimately you're in a business where you're selling something someone needs to buy. That needs to be the most important maths equation above and beyond anything else. But, you know, typically if you've got a great product but you have no one to help you be successful, you don't have a global business or a local one. So if your customers are local, you have to interact with customers the way they want. You know, we saw, for example, in the Middle East, people wanted to do business on WhatsApp. And that was really tough. It's like, well, how do we do business on WhatsApp? And we realized, like, $100,000 contracts were being signed as a PDF sent on WhatsApp and sent back to you. And, you know, we built this elaborate DocuSign, HelloSign type system. So I think it's very important to be local. I think the second then is culture. You know, we've made some big mistakes in realizing just how culture works, right? What's the math behind it? What's the biology behind it? Because it's a human phenomenon. You know, we had an office in the US where, like, it imploded because we didn't focus on this enough. And it's not because we had a bad culture. It's just that office had its own culture and the rest of the org had something else. And so it's not just about hiring people. So to me, the hardest lesson has probably been, what is the rate at which you grow? And is there a maximum threshold?
And what's the answer to that?
So I think about the world from a team's perspective or people perspective as 3 primary shapes. When we're little, you have 3 shapes. You have a circle, a square, and a triangle. When you are 1 person or 10 people, the circle is everyone that knows your brand, which is just really the 5 people. The square is your team, and the triangle is the connecting fabric. You know, like the phone operator that used to connect the dots. And so when you're little, actually each point on those 3 shapes touch. Sort of makes sense, right? Because you can think of a problem, you come up with a solution, you're involved with the execution. When you get to our size, we're still not that big, 900 people. The circle grows exponentially in that journey because you want as many people to know who you are. The square is made up of lots of little squares, teams, regions, departments. And the square should never grow more than 1.9x because the biology of osmosis is culture is just like water, osmosis, right? And so you don't want to go from high concentration to low concentration, and if you do, but you don't want that high concentration to be all the new culture. And then you have the triangle, And this is the most important part that we all miss. These are the culture ambassadors. These are the people that connect the dots. So the square grows, say, 2x, the triangle shrinks by 4x. And for me, what this did is it set up a mathematical equation of, well, just how fast can you grow? And the minute you break these barriers, you're toast.
I love that. I love that. Let's bring in our other panelists. So good. Big round of applause for Satveer Singh Thakral, founder, managing partner of Riverwalk. Big round of applause. Shashank Bijapur, co-founder and CEO of Spotdraft, and Agam, Khare, founder and CEO of Absolute Foods. Right, gentlemen, how are we feeling? What's the key to expanding internationally, Agam? What's the key? What's the top 3 things we need to know if we're looking to expand that A to Z journey?
I think the foremost thing is that to know that life is a function of people and capital, whether it's business or life. It's only a function of people and capital. And unless you have your equations for those 2 things sorted, there is no scaling up. You need to have great people and good amount of capital to do whatever you want to do. The second very important thing is to have infinite clarity about any subject that you want to dwell down in. Not good amount of clarity, not great amount of clarity, infinite amount of clarity. With infinite amount of clarity comes infinite power to grow, to scale. And when you're looking to get that infinite clarity, question everything. Why would you do a certain thing? Why would you scale a certain business? Why certain markets? Why certain sort of people? Why this business strategy? How to win against the competitors globally in a certain marketplace? That brings you infinite amount of clarity. What to play, how to win, why will you be ahead of everybody else? And third very important thing is doing the best works of your life. And not doing average work, not doing good work, not doing great work, but doing the best works of your life every single day. And when you do that, and when the entire organization starts doing that, phenomenal magic starts to happen. And when you really go back home and feel every day that today was fantastic, today was gratifying, and we did something which would change the planet for better tomorrow. When those 3 things, since you asked, when those 3 things fall in place, magic happens. Now, yeah.
Yeah, Shashank, your 3 things.
Yeah, I think for us it was investors first. So if you're building a SaaS company like we are, investors will ask you, hey, when are you going to the US? So that was the first drive. Second was the market took us there, which is we saw, it was the pandemic when we started expanding. We had visitors coming from all over the world visiting our website, trying to pull us in. And the third thing is pure ambition. There are 0 SaaS companies that have been built without capturing US as a core market, and we thought that we had to go and sort of grow there. So that's really, again, people and capital, true, but for a lot of companies, it's capital which drives you there, and then you start expanding.
Yeah, Satveer, we're gonna look at this through your Riverwalk hat, which obviously is an India-focused fund, but we can talk about portfolio companies and the lessons that they need to learn to go global. What advice would you give?
So I think what we've seen constantly is usually 1 or 3 things draw you to global. 1, it's the promise of customers, which is always the best. 2, it's the promise of a distribution partnership. Someone says, well, I'll take you there. And 3, I think, is ambition, the faith that you can get there. I think the holy grail is usually, at least when you connect 2 of these, either the people are going to get you there, or the people are going to buy your product when you get there, or some version of that. So we've seen that very often. Global ambition is, of course, a lot more difficult than it sounds, but sometimes very important. Shashank mentioned SaaS companies to the US. Shashank, we've been honored to partner with for many years. We've seen the change that has done both to your revenues and the team itself, right?
Yeah.
I think in some cases, though, it sounds easier than it is. So what we always advise when we talk to portfolio companies is the stepping stone you use to get there. Make sure one of them is very firm, whether that's distributor, whether that's customer, or a matter of both. So.
Can we elaborate more, Sachin, on something you said about the West Coast and culture and the office imploding because you didn't really, you had to deal with it. Maybe you didn't think about that enough prior to that. Let's talk about building a culture in different geographies, managing the workforce. How do you manage that? If we've got founders here, What advice would you give them if they're looking to expand abroad and managing the culture?
Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry. I think it's two things. I think one is around, the grassroots. If you're going to set up in a new location, for it's the US, you have to remember culture is like water. It follows the rules of osmosis. And you need to have a higher concentration of people that already know your culture there, that ultimately will then bring everyone else onto the same page. That is just without negotiation, at least for us now. And we're just opening an office in France, and we're having that same discussion where we're moving people from around our offices that are already a part of the triangle. I think the second thing is do not grow at any cost. Related to that, because growing at any cost, filling seats in, we're a big believer of Prism's law, which is the square root of the people that are contributing towards an output are actually the people creating more than 50% of that output. And so the bigger the company you have, people just assume output will grow linearly, and it doesn't. And I think the second part of this, sort of the B answer, is context. As COVID kicked in, for us, people felt a part of the tribe because of the war, right, of COVID. And so what you find is human beings at time of war fall in line with the masses. And that's your family, your tribe, because there's protection in numbers. So we came out of COVID, so during COVID, we saw a spike in productivity. And then we came out of COVID, we saw the exact opposite. Suddenly everybody became up themselves. And we're like, well, hang on a second, that's not the equation we understood for the last 1 year. What's changed? And it's just that people's relationship with work and the tribe changed dramatically. And so you research this more, and this is, I think, really important, is all human beings around the world, wherever you hire them, they have 4 chemical reactions that matter. 2 of them are selfish chemicals, dopamine and endorphins. Yeah. 2 of them are belonging chemicals, serotonin and oxytocin. The feeling you get when you see someone else helping someone else, even though you didn't help them, that actually is like belonging to a tribe. And so actually a big part of growing is how do you get people as fast as possible to have that right balance of those 4 chemicals? What do you do in the office? How do you interact? Because that makes you successful.
How do you do that? How do you get that balance right, Agam? The culture in different countries. How do you build that culture, get everyone on board, managing the workforce? It's so important when you're looking to expand globally.
So for us, it's doing fundamental things fundamentally better. And when we say that, the idea is that you look at the workforce that you have today, the workforce that you're going to get for tomorrow, and then looking at what really matters to people. Because when you call it a company, what is a company but a group of people aligned to a purpose? And if every single person in your company is aligned to a certain purpose, and purpose comes prior to everything else, then everybody is driven for that purpose, for nothing else but for that purpose. And once everybody is aligned to that purpose, then you think of, as an organization, you think of what is the most important thing to these people. And then you start solving for those things. I mean, as founders, it's our job, it's our core KPI to ensure that everybody in the organization is served, either professionally, personally, I mean, whatever their interests are, it's our job. And once you start taking care of people in that way, I mean, culture has been taken care of.
How do you go about it?
Yeah, I look at culture as, you have those large Greek boats with long oars, and then people are rowing it, and then there's somebody sitting in front and playing the drums and sets the beat of how quickly you're supposed to row. So the role of a founder is that, and that's what sets culture. And it's incredibly difficult to do, especially when you're born, let's say, as an Indian company, and then suddenly you expand. People are wondering why you have Shah Rukh Khan memes going on Slack, and they're trying to make sense of what is happening. Why does 90% of the company stay in one geography, whereas the rest of them just work through the night, they have no support? So I like what Sachin said, and that's what's worked for us as well, which is getting people from your home base, like your HQ, and then putting them in your other satellites where you're trying to grow, and use that as a way to promote culture and then get them a sense of belongingness with the company. A lot of it for us has been, again, it's been a hit and miss, but what's worked for us is having a very thorough interview process where culture takes precedence over everything else. Between skill and will, it's not really skill, it's will, and the ability to work in that cross-cultural manner. So, yeah, so it's tough, and everybody is going to make mistakes, but it's you get it right over a few tries here and there.
Yeah. How do you look at it from a sort of VC perspective?
I think all great suggestions, stuff we've seen, when implemented well, works out. I think a couple of additional thoughts that we've seen work. One is it's very important to have consistent must-haves and must-nots in all the offices when you truly go global. And it should represent, of course, the founder's view, but also leave some cultural, I guess, fluidity, right? For example, some offices may have very different rules on work from home versus work from office, and in those locations, understanding what is necessary is when. But we have seen some consistency around, for example, the obvious ones are integrity, honesty, loyalty, but we have seen consistent feedback on, for example, very strict stand across office on smaller, lighter things that do happen, but maybe something like office bullying or office gossip, and culture has some being built around saying, no, we won't have this at all, any of our offices. And I think when you have your must-haves, your must-nots, then some culture may be slightly different as it spreads. Of course, these are conversations of founders who've been very successfully built global teams, but we've seen some who've tried and have struggled. And so culture may form slightly differently in satellite locations, but the core values must be consistent. And I think somewhere between that, you will find what ultimately is company culture.
So we're talking about the lessons which you have to take on board if you want to grow. But should we want to grow globally, given the difficult macroeconomic background? We've got inflation out of control. We've got possibly most of the world heading into recessions, slowdowns. There's the possibility of stagflation. There's a war, Russia, Ukraine. It's a difficult background, maybe, if you're looking to expand globally. Sachin, what would your advice be?
I think it's a matter of context. Firstly is, do you need to?
Yeah.
Are you at 10% of TAM or 0.001% of TAM? Second thing is, I think it's quite fundamental, and for us, COVID was a huge tailwind because of this, is geodiversity is actually very powerful in 3 areas. Revenue, because if one country has a problem, one has an inflation issue, one has a slowdown, it's very rare the whole world has it, except COVID. But then, digital transformation kicked off. I think the second is in sector specific. If you are building an AI, selection bias is our biggest problem. It's the current day #1 problem for most deep tech companies. And so you need to make sure you have a ground set of folks around it. And I think the third is, in this expansion, so you've got revenue, you've got you need to from a selection bias perspective. I think the third is, will you benefit a lot from global creativity? I think you have national creativity, but we have seen prolific results when we get teams together from very different nationalities. So we have 7 offices, we have 51 nationalities in the company, and we see stupendous results as a result of that.
So mixing
it up, because I think that works really well.
Global creativity. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I would just double click on that. And I mean, very valid point and similar observations. So for instance, we are a company very deep into R&D around everything to do with microbiology to synthetic biology, everything around biology. Now, you don't find, first of all those people in one country. You have to go across the world, and world is home. You're developing for the world, and therefore people from the world have to develop it. So you have to go across and find these people. What we have seen is that when you get people from all across the world, the best of the talent, they do magical stuff together. And our observation has also been that at times you just don't need to really take care of and think of all these cultural problems when you have the real great talent. But one key sort of problem that we face that I would love to share is that there were times when we had to select between a great skill set versus fitment. And at that point in time, we chose great skill set because we were just building up. And I think we did a mistake. Fitment, cultural fitment, tops the priority of everything that you do in the company, everything. And skill set may be built over time, and you have to take a long-term view on people and on anything that you build, but there has to be never a sacrifice that you make to a cultural sort of integrity of the company.
Shashank?
Yeah, so your question was, is this the right time?
Yes.
Right, so I think this is the right time because let's take a step back and see what is the unhealthy advantage that India has as an economy. It's the fact that we can get extremely talented people at a very cost-effective price. So this is the time where you build much faster, because your competitors in the US or UK, where they're fully based out of there, are going to be bleeding money, whereas you can build faster here and set up GTM teams elsewhere and do that experimentation sooner. So you can catch up to your competition and probably even overtake them, and this perhaps is the best time to do it. I feel like it's the time where others are going to be at their weakest, and we can use that to our strength.
Out of a crisis comes an opportunity. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, for some, I think it's important. I think this crisis, of course, hit home for many. It's been difficult for startups across the block. And I think just for the broader audience, you may have people building out there, not just for the panel. I think being cautiously optimistic is probably the name of the game right now. I know sometimes it feels that we bottomed out. Things can get worse. But if you have capital, Shashank spoke about the macro factors of India for the world. It's incredible how India is looking and how well India is poised from a tech talent perspective, from the domestic market perspective, from a global perspective. Having an English-speaking population build out for primarily some of the English markets. Now we're seeing the regional languages kick in around India. And I think everything aligns correctly, but it's most important to make sure that you have the capital to do that, and capital to possibly last longer than you may want it to. Yeah. And I think at this point, the lessons we've seen across all the recessions is you cannot put an end date on it. So I think only makes sense when you really have reserves to go for it, and then you allocate a certain amount for it. If you can't cover it in that period, then don't stretch, is what I think.
Let's get the audience involved. Gentleman at the front, gentleman second row. We're just going to get you a microphone, and then there's a gentleman at the back as well. Good, 3 good questions. Let's have them all, and then we'll feed you with some food. I think you all need a bit of food. I can see it.
Hi, my name is DJ. I'm the founder of Focus Engineering and Focus Technologies. The answer is congratulations to all of you guys to make it to here and successful. There might be some breakdown moments in your journey. What was your efforts in those journeys to come across those hurdles? Because everyone talks about success, everyone talks about nice things. We want to see that what were the values that you laid down so that you have become more successful companies.
Go down the row, Sachin.
So the net effect of all of our mistakes, just because we made so many of them, is we codified culture. So we have a book. It's called The B6 Way of Life. It's a hardbind coffee table book that we ship out now. We'll be shipping the next version. We run 2 rounds of culture interview. They have a veto. We created math equations around how fast a department can grow. And if it grows faster, that the leader has to come present to me and explain how they're going to make sure the triangle fattens. So we've kept a constant vernacular. And I think for us, it's very clear we're building a business to serve our customers. We're not building a business to drive valuation, which is why you'll see we never ever talk about our market cap or our price, our valuation. We don't subscribe to that. That will come. That's the net effect.
What is your market cap?
I'm not going to tell you.
Worth a try.
So my sense is that, there are times when you really need perseverance, and you just have to ensure that you don't give up. And there have been times in, I think, everybody's journey, nobody is devoid of that. And resilience and grit is what keeps you going. And the second thing that is very important in that time is when you're hiring people, definitely have some people who will stand with you whatsoever may come. And you have to scout those people in the company, build that sort of culture in the company, and own that sort of talent, which will stick by the purpose, whatever may come. And purposes at times, what we have felt through our journeys, that purposes are profound. They can do magical things. And people will stand by you, stick by you. I mean, for 6 months, there was a time in our journey when we were not able to pay people, none of them. And they just stood by us and said, we are there. We will stand by it. And then things changed. And that happens. And so just sticking, that resilience, that perseverance is the answer.
I'm going to get the gentleman in the second row to speak, and then we'll finish the row, please.
Yeah. My name is Kamal Puri from Skyline International Group. See, in 48 years, I built up various businesses and taken an exit on that. Let me give you one, then I'll put a question on that. Some of the business, founder cannot sit. It's not allowed. I give you example, education. Founder is not allowed. I don't have an office in my university, by the way. It's not allowed. How do you manage that type of a business where founders are not allowed at all? What I have done in so many years, vision, mission, purpose, goals, objectives. I have put everything on auto. I don't visit any of my businesses. Doing globally, everywhere. I handle through technology. Now my question to you people is, if founder is not allowed, what you will do?
Shashank.
I get the tough one. I guess the answer is in the question that you said, which is having technology to probably take your place and keep you updated on what's happening. Thankfully, I don't come from a business where I'm not allowed. I'm a recovering lawyer and I sell to lawyers, so and I go to office every day. But it's a tough one. I would say that it's difficult to keep track of everything. If you get the right sets of technology and people in place that can help you build processes and tools, then that's the right way forward. And then Satveer will give the better answer now.
I think I'm in a similar situation. I started the journey at Riverwalk and had Jay partner up, and I think if we're both founders, I think if I didn't go, things would be fine. If he didn't, maybe things would probably collapse. But I think it's the rest of the team, to the point raised. But it's interesting you mentioned all the things you said before saying then I wasn't allowed. And so I guess at some point the question is, earlier in your career, if you weren't allowed, what would have happened? And I think startups at some stage probably want to get to the point where they don't have to be there. And at some point later on in their career, they can also be a deterrent to growth. But early on, I think founder-led culture decisions is very critical. And
I've been ordered to wrap, so I want a big round of applause for our wonderful panelists first. Well done, gentlemen. After lunch, which is now, we have Vivek Oberoi, the actor and investor, so that's something to look forward to. That's at 2:15, so be back here at 2:15 or I'll chase after you all out there. You'll hear me. Come back in here. Enjoy lunch. Have a fantastic lunch. See you at 2:15. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think that went well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done.